Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Oh, yeah! Well, hello, movie fans. Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie, where today I have an entourage with me.
Yeah!
You don't normally?
No.
Okay.
No, nobody wants to hang around me. Really.
Does that make me the Sloan?
This is nice. Yeah. You're much prettier.
That's the nicest compliment I ever got my whole life.
My name is Demetri Panos, and like I said, hello, movie fans. We are here with the Entourage to talk about Entourage. I'm going to introduce, because we have 2 brand new hosts with us today to talk about this movie. On my far right, I got Steve Kaufmann. Say hello. And
Hi. I
welcome.
love this show.
Thank you.
I love this show, like this movie a lot.
Yeah, we do too. Thank you. And right next to him is Nick Grava.
Hey guys, what's going on?
All right, and Nicholas, you've been doing podcasts for AfterBuzz.
Yes.
Stay with you, Steve.
Yep.
So
We're actually both on the Suits panel.
that's fantastic, and hopefully those folks are joining us tonight. And then to my immediate right is the very lovely Roxy Striar, who has not done an Anatomy of a Movie in for frickin' ever.
Yeah,
so
and
it's a
almost I think a month.
Yeah,
it could be.
It's a pleasure. I haven't done with you in a long time.
Yeah,
so
and he didn't even miss
pleasure.
me.
I missed her like the sleeves off a vest. I missed her greatly, and it's so nice to just have this female perspective on what is they're saying this is like a Sex in the City for men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And also we have to give props to Phil Svitek, another fan of Entourage, who's in the booth pressing all the buttons and doing all the good tech work. He's going to chime in as well. So,
Cool.
Why don't we just get right into this? We have some super fans here. I admittedly am a casual fan, but a fan nonetheless. So we're going to start off with you, new guy Steve.
Mm-hmm. New guy Steve.
New guy Steve. I'll take that.
What are your thoughts?
I enjoyed this movie very much. It was pretty much exactly what I thought it would be, which was just an extended, bigger version of an episode of the TV show. And they make that very clear from he's on a boat in Spain. He wants to direct a $100 million movie. And then the opening credits are not just little landmarks in Hollywood and Los Angeles, but most of Los Angeles County. And at one point, it's the Hollywood sign, it's the Staples Center, and it's made very clear from go that this is going to be bigger than the regular Entourage movie, the regular Entourage show.
Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I went into it, I guess, with the exact expectation of what I got, so I was really happy with it. I was a fan of the show, although as the later episodes, I sort of got spotty with what I was watching, but I was so excited for the movie, and I went in, and I just love seeing these guys together. I think they have an amazing chemistry and banter, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Now, Roxy, you've actually paneled some of the for AfterBuzz and Entourage.
Yeah, way back when.
I've known you as being a very big Entourage fan, so
It's one of those shows that I watched the entire way through. I started on day 1, but it's also one of those shows where I'm bored and I'm at home and I want to put this on just because I'll watch season 4, episode 7, just randomly.
That's a good episode.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. I love this show. So a bit of thing. This is what I'm going to say about it. I could have gone to see the biggest piece of crap and I would have still absolutely loved it because I just wanted to see my favorite characters back on screen again. Now, I'm not saying this was absolute crap. I thought that it was actually pretty good, but it didn't matter to me what happened. I wanted to see my boys back on screen, and that's exactly what we got. If you strung 4 episodes together it would have created this movie. 4 pretty good episodes.
Like,
so
even early season, like the four Aquaman episodes, like
Right.
the end of season 2,
Right.
had just had enough weight to be considered a movie.
I'm still waiting for James Cameron to make that movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
I just don't know what he's waiting for.
Yeah.
I think
Well, he's like Avatar, and he's under some deep water with Avatar right now.
And James
Can't
Wan
wait for
is
that.
directing this Aquaman, so we're living in a different world.
Yes. So, I thought as a casual fan, I thought the movie was good. I did. I enjoyed it. I thought there was some really good laughs. There was some great Hollywood insider things. I always think that it's tough to make a movie about making movies because you end up losing a lot of your national audience. But this one was very inside, obviously, and I found some of that to be satirical and pointedly funny because it happens in real life. But while I was watching it, I had a couple of thoughts, and I'm going to throw this out there. Number one, I felt, God, would they have better served themselves if they had just kept this on HBO? And I'm saying this because...
You mean this exact piece if it was an HBO movie?
Correct.
Okay.
Because I got the sense that, maybe it almost seemed like they weren't happy with their finale, and that they wanted to do more. And
Finale, their entire final season.
Their entire final season. And because the final episode ends, they go off into the sunset together. We know all is, whatever. And it just seemed they weren't happy with that. And I don't know. I'm looking at, like, when you look at the grosses, when you look at the drubbing that they got from, review-wise from critics, 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's not fair.
I
don't think
don't
that's
agree
fair.
with that either.
But-
I really don't.
but I'm
Because the
saying
people on Rotten Tomatoes weren't fans of the show. Like, you got to compare all these metrics to this movie. I have to compare it to the Sex and the City movie.
And again, that movie, though, box
one?
office wise,
Yeah.
was huge.
first one.
I mean, huge. The second one did some big opening weekend numbers as well. However, I still think that, again, when you're making a movie, your critics and what you look at it differently than when you watch a television show. And I think had it been on HBO, I want to throw this out there, had it been on HBO as an HBO movie, and HBO's great at promoting their stuff, right? That people would have looked at it differently, and it might have gotten those better reviews, and they probably would have gotten better ratings that they could have crowed about. So,
A couple of things. Number one, we mentioned Sex and the City. Obviously, that is the comparison people are making, which I don't think is necessarily fair. We've got 2 completely different demos, 2 completely different movie-going audiences, and also... Sex and the City, the way that it ended, the final season, people loved what happened there. And then we were adding on to that. Okay, Sex and the City 2 is a completely different story.
Sure.
But I have seen Sex and the City, like, I don't know, maybe 400 times.
The movie or are we talking
both, the TV
okay.
show and the movie. At both. I watch it on a repeat. I love it. I also love Entourage that same way. So that kind of fan might be similar, but the audiences are so different. I'm one of the only people I know who was obsessed with both shows.
I agree. I think it's the easy comparison just because you look at the, strong female cast, strong male cast, a show that is extending into a movie. But I agree with you, and the
HBO.
demographic is completely different.
Right.
And therefore the audience, you can't, almost every review I was seeing was comparing the two, which started to frustrate me a little
Right.
bit.
Here's what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah, well, and Phil, first, your opinion on the movie, because you two are a big fan. We've talked about Entourage, and then go into what you were going to say, of course.
Here's what I will say about that. I number one, I really enjoyed the trailers. The way they made it seem, I thought it was very much going to be about Vin wanting to direct this movie, and it was going to be a battle to make that happen. I very much appreciate and respect that it wasn't like that. If it was the TV version, I think that would have certainly at least been a couple episodes, if not the season, to get Vin to be able to do not only the movie but also to direct it. So I like the fact that we're dealing with the tail end of it.
Are you on a nickname basis with Vin?
Vince.
Vinny
Baby
Chase?
bro.
Vince Chase has been in here at least 5 times. Where were you?
When
Yeah,
Baby
yeah.
Bro's doing, he's acting and directing the movie, okay? So you got that. And then in terms of that, the inception of it is very much, Doug Ellin and Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg kept hounding Doug Ellin, when are we going to have an Entourage movie? I mean, they've always wanted that. They've always had that in the talks. So you know, I mean, it's one of those things when you ever see like the old TV shows, like particularly in sitcoms when they go to Hawaii or down to Mexico for spring break. Well, why do they do that? Well, it's because the producers wanted to just go down to spring break. So it's with these guys, they wanted to make a movie, and that's what they did.
Fair.
Why is that not fair?
Because I think that there's a little bit more plot development than, hey, I'm kind of bored with my life. I want to go there for spring break.
I think it's a matter of I'm bored with doing the movie and I'm bored with doing a TV series in one place. Let's bring the thing I'm doing to another place.
It's possible. For me, it did seem like a hour and a half or almost 2 hour version of the series. Like to me, I didn't necessarily see the need of making that leap into a movie because it really didn't. For me, it didn't necessarily look like a movie. It looked like a polished HBO movie.
But on the money side, it's done $3 million foreign, $20 million domestic, so it's just about made its budget back.
It's at $21 million to date total gross and $24 million worldwide.
I thought it would do infinitely better than that, and of course they did. That's why. So when we talk about this, obviously we're talking about their motivation and not what actually happened. Money is a huge motivation for anybody in this industry. You can't say that they didn't do this because they thought they were going to make money. They obviously thought they were going to make a lot of money on this. I was with them. I was wrong. So were they. They have not made anywhere close. I thought at least their opening weekend wasn't a weekend. It was 5 days. And I thought that they would break, I had a bet that they would break 21.
Ooh.
They didn't, they made 18.
Yeah.
It was really, they were what? I think it was 4th in the box office for their opening weekend.
And they opened on a Tuesday.
Yeah, but behind Insidious and Spy, which by the way we'll be talking about later.
And going into your gross, I mean the total budget, and this includes hard drives and advertising. We're looking at around $57 million.
Right.
So worldwide, if it's only grossed $24 million, to recoup that back, it's going to be a little bit rough. And we had a 3-day gross of $10 million. And they were trying from that Wednesday. They had a big Wednesday number, but that meant that the Entourage fans went.
Right.
And then
I went on Wednesday.
Gross,
Of course I went on Wednesday.
And then their 5-day gross ended up being $17 million. And when you look at 5 days and you look at and again they had some competition going on. They had a franchise horror film that was doing really well, PG-13.
They didn't open up against a freaking Marvel movie, though.
I know. But
they didn't open up against a Marvel movie. But again, when you look at a movie like Insidious 3, this is a very popular. It's been a popular franchise with lower budget, and they're still going into San Andreas its second weekend.
Right.
And then you're looking at Spy,
which was good, by the way.
A lot of fun. And then you had Spy, which is really a well sought after. People were looking forward to seeing this comedy.
Okay, but here's why I didn't think it was going to be affected by this. My friends that were going to see Entourage the movie are people that don't even go to the movies.
Right.
They watch TV. They're not moviegoers. So they're not fighting for the same audience as people who are going to see Insidious or Spy because they would never go see those movies because they don't even go to the movies. All of my guy friends at home, every single one of them, huge Entourage fans. So they're all going to see Entourage because it's in the movie theater. They never ever buy tickets for anything. Maybe they go to one movie a year. So I was thinking that no matter what else was against this weekend, I thought they were gonna open first in the box office. I was dead wrong, though.
You would assume that they had the most built-in audience out of all of those movies that were going in there.
But again, I want to, and again, just being a casual fan, I have to throw this out there. Really, how big is that audience? Like when you make a movie like that, when you make a movie that's going to make a leap from TV to big screen, right? One of the biggest mistakes sometimes people have is you're making it too much for the fans. When you look at some of the biggest, look, Mission Impossible hadn't been on TV for a long time. How do you market that movie? But it was a television show.
Right.
Star Trek's a television show. Like, you gotta make it more
Star Trek's
appealing. Well, perhaps it is, but my thing is, like, when you make a Dukes of Hazzard movie, which I'm sure is grossed a little bit more than this, you gotta try to bring in more than just your fans, and I don't think this movie attempted to do that.
Here is the other problem. When people think of Entourage, they think huge numbers. That's got so many viewers. Their finale got, I think, 3 million viewers, which was a season high for them. This isn't a show that was pulling in 14 million viewers a week.
It's not Game of Thrones.
It's not Game of Thrones.
Right.
So when I'm thinking about it afterwards and I'm trying to justify why didn't this do as well as I thought, because so you have 3 million fans.
4 million of us showed up on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely, we did, and that was kind of it.
And throughout the weekend,
right?
Yeah.
So when you look at that, knowing that fact, though, if you're like you said, you're making it for money, and if you're looking at this on a chart, you know that you're making an extended version of the show. You know that that's your numbers. So where did the jump go from when they expected a different result? I guess that's then my question.
Well, they expected around 21 million. They expected to break 20 million on that first weekend, and they were very disappointed that they didn't.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed for them.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes when you're in this industry, you get a little bit blindsided by the fact that Entourage is a hit. That's all they keep thinking. Entourage has been a huge hit. But when you actually look at the hard numbers, does that classify as a hit? Not 3 million viewers for a finale? For a series finale?
It's a hit for HBO. And again, this is why I go back to, I think that they may have been better served just to make a special event HBO movie, because think about it again, when you make this movie, not only, okay, so you're going to have that, it's going to be on a Sunday night, or give them the time slot that they had. This is going to be a 2-hour event movie. Like I said, HBO knows how to publicize its own stuff.
Right.
You know when Game of Thrones is coming out from HBO, you know when Girls is coming out, or Curb Your Enthusiasm is coming out.
They haven't released the date for Leftovers. Do you hear me, HBO? Drop that date.
Please. So
it's driving me insane. It's supposed to be a summer show.
Anyway. I just think that
the rest of it,
that Entourage would have, like, you would have gotten like good ratings on that opening night, right? But then you would have had the DVR people. Then you would have had multiple showings. And again, I think people would have. It falls under less scrutiny because you're on HBO. You're on the small screen. We associate HBO with some high quality shows. Okay, AfterBuzz panels a lot of the television shows on there, and there's a like, if it's HBO, you go, wow, it's going to be a really good television show. But once it makes that leap, and this goes for any television show, once it goes from small screen to big screen, you're under a different scrutiny. You're under different eyes looking at it.
I don't think they made this movie caring much about that scrutiny, though.
Yeah.
Move on. Okay.
Here's my final point on this, though. I think that is an interesting concept. However, they were trying to broaden their audience because they were hoping that this would be a trilogy. There would be Entourage 1, 2, and 3. So they were trying to reach out to people that didn't watch the show because they realized that only 3 million people were watching the show. So they wanted to open the doors to more people. Did that work?
Not possible. Maybe it will come out as a late runner.
On that note, I mean, obviously, it didn't do. The numbers don't quite show it, but there are a few people talking about it in the chat. And by the way, in the future, feel free to comment. Let us know if you weren't a fan beforehand, saying that they weren't fans. They saw it, they liked it, and I think story-wise, I thought they did a good enough job. Obviously, I know Entourage well, but they did the little bit with. What's the British guy's name? Why am I blanking on it? The report at the front, right? They did the whole report.
Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan.
I enjoyed that very much.
The Piers Morgan report, I thought, was a clever device.
It was.
Comedic-wise, but also to set up anybody who wasn't aware of the series, and you're kind of in. I mean, for the most part, you know what you're getting in.
And also the Piers Morgan thing up top wasn't just a device for people coming in. Like, I actually really enjoyed like the Mentos commercial.
Right. Like, funny.
Yeah, it was really funny.
And the pizza boy picture and like a bunch. Where I was like, this is stuff that this is original content.
I agree.
And then it makes me wonder, had it been anything else other than a movie that was called Entourage based off of an HBO show, could this have been like that movie about making a movie in Hollywood, and could you have expanded upon just the Entourage audience? I don't know. It was something that I was thinking about because I did find that the movie had some funny dialogue.
Right.
It had some great Hollywood insider satire, and it made fun of that whole thing. We'll get into that.
We're in this industry.
Right.
Obviously, we're going to think that kind of stuff is funny. Does Middle America think that's funny?
They can, because there are movies like The Player. There are movies that do really well, that people like really enjoy, and they can gravitate to. This movie. Let's talk about this movie. Took 4 years to make, and
too long. It took too long.
It took a while. It took a little while.
We haven't seen anything since 2011. That's a big jump.
And
to
it's a
ask your
jump
fans
they
to wait.
don't, like, within that timeline, they don't actually handle that jump well. Because it's essentially been 9 months.
Right.
We didn't
But we
even know
just-
there was going to necessarily be a movie. Everybody's been pushing for one, and they've been dropping hints, but it wasn't like, there will be a movie, just hold on.
Yeah, I think the series would have ended differently if they knew there was going to be a movie.
And what's really interesting, though, is, so August 7th in 2010, HBO programming president Michael Lombardo tells the Television Critics Association that the networks ordered a shortened final season of Entourage to air the following year. So they were planning a shortened thing. He adds that series creator Doug Ellin might write a follow-up film after the series concludes, but that Ellin is in the process of pitching other projects. So then in August 2011, I found this timeline of how this movie got, came to fruition. Jeremy Piven, they're basically like, write this movie. He needs to pick it up. We need to get on this guy. He's talking about Doug Ellin. Then on September 10th, a day before the finale airs, Entourage lead Adrian Grenier states that the film is 100% happening. Then the final episode airs September 11, 2011. And then Piven, Piven comes out in December saying, well, that's a rumor.
Right.
So, and we know that there was drama, and getting people.
And not just Johnny.
Right.
But
So,
you didn't like that one that much?
So there was drama getting some of these people on board. Jeremy Piven was a big holdout, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And
money.
pissing people off, and getting this done. And, look, I'm glad that they got the cast back. I don't think this movie works by replacing other people.
No,
because,
absolutely
right?
not.
Oh my
I don't
God.
think so.
I would have been furious if they had tried to keep a character but replace the actor. That would have been brutal.
Or just have to explain the character's not there. Like,
Right.
I like their instinct that they would rather make this movie 4 years later than make any movie like that. Where
Right.
It's like, well, what happened to Turtle? Oh, he's off in the Caribbean with the promoting Avion.
Absolutely. And in all fairness to Jeremy Piven, who reportedly was a pain in the butt, he's busy.
Yeah.
He's actually, he's a working actor, and he's busy. So I understand why he needed certain things.
By the way, I do respect, in terms of the contract negotiations, the rest of them, the four, they all band together. One of the reasons why it took a little bit longer was they wanted to have those guys have different contract fees, right? So, they, depending on when they negotiated Piven's, the rest of the boys would get something different, but they stood their ground and said, we're doing fair nations. We don't care what Piven's getting, but for us, it's going to be X amount, and you have to guarantee that for everybody, not just me or whoever.
Yeah,
that's smart.
I think that there should be a movie about the making of this.
There's enough content there.
Because
Like a documentary, no joke.
Well, like in September 1st through the 10th in 2013, so we're talking 2 years ago, Ellin fields a series of fan questions regarding this Entourage movie, and he basically says, it's not in my hands, it seems impossible to make, not optimistic, but still hoping. I mean, this movie had a rocky road.
That's 2 years ago.
And that's 2 years ago, and again, like, you're talking about a show that's been off the air, so we are so fragmented that new shows have come on and that those fans are watching. The people who never saw Entourage, they still don't care about Entourage.
Or that they saw it and they didn't like it, they still don't like it.
Yeah.
It baffles me, people that didn't like the show that went to see the movie and they're like, I don't like the movie.
That's
obviously.
Well, why did that's because they didn't separate themselves from the show at all. So, but people that expected them to do that.
Why would you expect any different? I don't get that.
No,
And that's what
agree.
I mean by the scrutiny that they're facing as a movie. That I think it's a little unwarranted, and I don't think the Rotten Tomatoes score is very accurate.
Right.
Because a critic might not have liked the Entourage show, which then that's not for you. You shouldn't be rating it.
But if you're gonna make a movie and put it in the box office, then you understand you're opening it up to that audience.
Yeah, you are, and that's why it's a different scrutiny. But I do want to move on because we were with the panel that liked this movie.
Right.
Okay, we were a panel that liked this movie, and we have a great degree of, like I said, I'm a casual fan to super fans.
Yeah.
So you had brought up a great point. You would not have been on board. Say Jeremy Piven, for the sake of this conversation, said, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they decided to either put his assistant in that role, Lloyd in that role, or something. Like,
that would have been different.
That would have been different.
If they had,
would you have been on board? Still, had they done that?
Yeah,
You know,
I would have still been
Let's
on
be real.
board.
If they slapped Entourage on it, I'd have went.
Yeah. Well, here's what I needed. I needed exactly who is on the poster to be in the movie.
Yes.
Was Emmanuel Shrieky somebody that I was looking forward to seeing? Yes, because I loved Sloane. Did I love the cameo by our EP, Maria Menounos? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, Gronk. Obviously, I'm a big Patriots fan. All of those things were helpful, but not 100% necessary. These 5 guys are necessary. Otherwise, I'm out.
Right.
Because that's the movie. What would have been worse than one of them not being there, though, would be putting the character there and recasting them. I'm so obsessed with these actors.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying before. What you just talked about, though, was the fact that we did like this movie. And I'll tell you what the best thing that this movie possibly could have done, it did, which is listen to its fans about the fact that this last season, a lot of things happened that they didn't want to happen. This show acknowledged that they took place and then completely negated the final season and was like, okay, this happened. Here's the only thing we're going to keep from it. Turtle being rich. Yeah. So that happened, and you guys liked that, so we're going to do that. But you remember how Adrian got married, or Vinny Chase got married?
No.
Yeah, we're not going to go with that.
Although, let's be real, did any of us ever think that was going to be happily ever after?
I mean, no, of course not. But I think that some people were going into this movie wondering, is that going to be there?
Yeah.
Right. They also acknowledged, they made jokes at themselves, talking about how much weight Jerry had lost. And because this was supposedly, I think, was 6 months later.
Yeah.
So how are you going to not say something about the fact that Turtles lost 100 pounds? That would have been ridiculous. So this movie was very self-aware. It was aware of its audience, and it was aware of what it wanted. And that really worked in its favor.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Okay, we're going to cover our butts here, and you guys didn't like some things, so we're going to change them.
Yeah, no, and again, we are fans of this movie, and I think it should be known, it had a tough hill to climb.
Yeah.
Now, I want to really talk about, I like some of the new things that they brought into this movie.
Ronda Rousey?
Ronda Rousey, who I thought, she turned in a really great, fun performance, and I really think for her career, I think that it shows the fun side of her.
Yeah.
And I think that it can only expand her borders when it comes to other movies.
Here's the neat part about, because I do want to on Ronda Rousey, it was a matter of just all things come together, because timeline wise, right, this was the first thing that she shot in her career. So people didn't know Ronda, and it just worked out perfectly for Entourage, not as well as, obviously initially hoped. But, now we've seen Ronda in these various roles, seen her doing great, and so that played to the hype of Entourage, like, we get to see Ronda again. But realistically, they were the first ones to utilize her in any role.
Really? Even before Expendables
everything.
3 and stuff?
Everything.
That's fascinating. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
I wonder what made her a choice, though. It seemed, because if that was first before anything else, it's just a surprising choice, I guess.
Well, she may have been a fan of the show, Phil or Roxy. Can you throw it? Because I think she.
I don't think she wasn't a fan of the show beforehand.
Oh, really?
She started binge watching it when she heard there was going to be a movie, and she was like, "Oh my god, I love this! I have to be in it."
Oh wow! So she chose it because she wanted to be in it. And it's very fitting of her brand too.
Yeah, I think it was good for her. I think it was a good choice, because I really do think that she has a bigger following, and it expands her universe, saying that she can be in a show that's a comedy, and she played it pretty well, and she's not beating the crap out of people. There's one scene, but she's not in an action movie, is what I'm saying.
What's interesting is some of these characters play themselves.
Yeah.
Like, if you're famous enough, you get to play yourself. And if you're not famous enough, then you have to play somebody else. As how originally this show started. Obviously, now these people are all incredibly famous because of the show. But she got to be her. So,
but what about Billy Bob Thornton? He's pretty famous.
No, well, that's true. That's true.
That's the character that I wanted to talk about.
That's definitely true. But all this can do is help her brand, because she gets to be. It's not exactly her, but she gets to put her name and likeness out there. That's great.
Yeah.
Very, very, with Haley Joel Osment, with Billy Bob.
Those two.
Then obviously they're both famous.
Great. And I wanted to talk about those two characters, because that is That is truer than life. I mean,
yes.
And if you've been within a studio system, if you've made movies, I was with Lionsgate for a long time, and there were people trying to buy Lionsgate out all the time, and Carl Icahn was one of those people, and there was big embattlement going on, and part of it was because they wanted to get their son on the board. And the son had no experience in Hollywood, no experience other than being a movie fan. And when Haley Joel Osment, when Billy Bob Thornton's character was like, well, I want him to see the movie because he likes movies. Well, that's great. I love Jeremy Piven. Like, again, Jeremy Piven had a great line with him about, oh, so the only experience you have is like you buy a ticket to the movie and you don't know anything else. And you show, like, that whole thing, as funny as and absurd as it was in the in this town.
Which is insane, really.
It is.
People at home, when people are at home are watching things and they're like, who made that decision? Somebody probably in the middle of nowhere made that decision, who had a lot of money. Like, movies can go wrong for a million reasons. This is just one of them. Sometimes I'm watching things, I even say to myself, why would somebody do that? And then I'm like, all right, somebody with some money came in and was like, I'm only giving you this money if X, Y, and Z happens. That happens.
Yeah, and then Haley Joel Osment's character goes on, because then he has some other ulterior motives, which, and again, grudges in Hollywood have torpedoed movies and have shelved them, or they've gone on to other studios, and this was a petty grudge. It was over a woman, which I found to be hysterical. But at the same time, I'm not shocked if you read it in the trades, or if you find out about these stories really happening. And that's one of the things that I really liked about Entourage. Even being a casual fan, those added elements, and then you have a director who gets locked out of his own editing bag.
Yes.
Right.
That stuff happens.
Absolutely. And my favorite part about the Billy Bob thing was at the end, when finally he figures out what this is all for, and he's like, yeah, it's stupid, it's still my son. And that happens too. Acknowledging that what's going on is ridiculous, but it's your family, so you're going to do it. Nepotism is huge here, and that was just really interesting, poignant, and so realistic that it was kind of painful.
I think a lot of the average viewers that aren't in our little bubble of this world walk away thinking, wow, that's such a tale that they've told us. I don't think that they see that and take that as the same way that we'll see it and take it.
I don't think they see it as it correlates to the things they watch. Where it's like, we've been around it enough that we see, we'll see a stupid mistake in a movie or TV show and go, and then kind of follow the money and be like, oh, there's a weird financier, that was probably him. And whereas people from most people from Middle America might not do that. They might just maybe that happens in Hollywood.
I don't want to bag on Middle America at all, because no, but I don't want there to be any misunderstanding, because some of your highest grossers outside of the large city markets come from Middle America.
Well, that's not even why we don't want to bag on them. We just don't want to bag on them because there's nothing to bag on.
American Sniper wouldn't have been American Sniper had it not been for for Middle America. I just think that to say it's a much broader thing, because not everybody, even if you live in New York, even if you live in Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, not everybody's attuned. Everybody else has lives.
I completely agree with that, but I think that the point of this is, even though I'm from Boston, big city, was a huge Entourage fan when I lived in Boston, moved to LA, started noticing things like Earth Cafe or whatever was going on, different signs, different billboards. That enhanced the show for me. The experience of living here made me really excited. And so I'm not even talking about Middle America. Anywhere that isn't LA, I think there is a different sort of appreciation in LA. I'm not saying more, a different appreciation, because it's like, not that this is our lives. Obviously, I'm not jumping on private jets going left and right. But
Really?
I am.
just once this year. That's actually true. But I am really, really interested in watching this stuff because it's kind of like, oh, that's where I go get my haircut. That's where I grab my coffee. That's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Here's what I want to add to that, and only because I don't think anyone's bagging on anybody. It's just the point being that it's very hard for anyone that's not in this and eat, breathe, and like I can relate to many other professions, but to relate to the entertainment industry, I don't think there's anything that really prepares you for that because I mean it might as well call it this, right? No matter how many times you throw a rock up. Anywhere else, it's going to fall down. In Hollywood, it's going to go zigzag and which way and hit you in the head. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I just wanted to, like, sometimes people can misinterpret because I know I mentioned middle of. I don't want anybody to misinterpret anything, and sometimes
I meant to say not business.
Yeah, but and we are in a there's no business like show business, no business I know, and just calling Roger Rabbit.
There was this great article though, which is why I think that this movie does relate to a lot of different people and not just to people in the industry or in big cities, whatever. And it's from Entrepreneur, and it's 5 golden lessons entrepreneurs can learn from Entourage. And just go check it out because I thought that it really highlights the great things about this show. And it does have kind of an inspiring message. So I really enjoyed that. Do you guys want to know what they are?
Yeah.
Okay, number 1, the people you surround yourself with contribute to your success. Very true. Number 2, you should always think big.
Absolutely.
Number 3, you have to be prepared to take multiple falls before getting your big break. Number 4, your instinct is right more than it's wrong. Don't bet against it. Number 5, don't forget to have fun. So then there's like paragraphs explaining exactly how it relates. But I thought that was really, really cool because sometimes people write the show off as just being like a bro-ish show where they're just having fun. It actually has a really cool message.
I get that as a show. If you're the casual moviegoer just seeing this one-off and you had no familiarity with the show, I think, unfortunately, a lot of those messages are going to be missed because they're going to be, what am I, if you're not, and that's where I thought that where this disconnect came in from, because as the person who didn't follow Entourage, if they were just going to go pick up their ticket and go in, there was no investment into the characters prior, and I don't think there was anything that made the characters, made an audience who was not a fan to really get invested into these characters for future films. I think it was just something that was on screen.
I think, well, that's why, like when you were saying earlier, if it wasn't called Entourage,
right,
I think that scared away a lot of viewers. Even me going, I'm like, oh wait, what do I remember the last season? Should I rewatch it just to get it? I didn't know how much of the past I needed, and I think a lot of audience members were questioning that, saying, okay, even like Sex and the City, I never watched that show, so in the end, I never even ended up seeing the movie because I didn't know if I was going to miss things. It was a waste for me to see that.
The problem with going to this movie, if you have never watched the TV show, is that you don't know as much about the relationships.
True.
And we didn't really explain that. Like, do you care at all about Sloane and E?
Well,
and they spend a lot of time on that. I don't know if you do.
Well, here's a weird thing about Sloane and E. Of all the things that they ended the series with, I actually thought Sloane and E ending together made the most sense. And then they ditched it, and here's why. I honestly think they went through the show and found what are the best beats from this show that we just have to have in the movie. Ari has to flip out on his psychiatrist. There has to be a load of celebrity cameos. Turtle has to go above and beyond for a girl. And E needs to be chasing Sloane.
Yeah.
And for no other reason than that, it's like, well, no, he should be promiscuous at the top of the movie and then be chasing Sloane.
And again, just as a casual fan, I liked what they did with the characters. It makes sense for Ari to run a studio.
Yeah.
That made sense.
Not at the end of the movie, but
no, but and again though, I thought that was done because in the end, Ari learns a lesson as well. But you know that he's going to be okay. because he will continue to be a producer. You don't necessarily have to run the studio.
And
But
even if he never
also
worked another day in his life, he's
gonna be okay. Yeah.
So, and you know, the way that this movie ended with the boys and who they ended up with and whatnot, you know, it was a very satisfying ending. They still ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, right.
There was no real strife or discord, or like there were no major hurdles other than, I got to get this movie done, but there wasn't any infighting. Everything ends.
Also, I like that we didn't get to see them make the movie at all, as Phil said, because in the history of the show, we very rarely...
It's never been about that.
Except for that Median episode, and that was the movie that didn't do... of all the movies within the show, that was the movie that didn't do well.
Right. Before we completely move on from relationships, I just wanted to address something really quick that everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of women out there were really, really offended by the way that women have been portrayed on this show and in this movie. In particular, the scene with Eric when he's getting yelled at by those two women at the shop, and how if you're not actually mad at somebody, then women are pretending to be whatever. A lot of women didn't like it. I had absolutely no problem with the depiction of women. I think that this show is funny. So I look at it as that. I think that it is funny, but it's interesting.
To that scene, I enjoyed that scene. I think the bigger portion of that is Eric's reaction to it, where he's like, "Oh, it's fine," and I get it in that moment. But then there should be a follow up of like, "What, you know, like I've really got to change," and I get that it'll, you know, ultimately he did because he ended up with Sloane and things like that. But I think there were a couple of missed beats for him to really get to that point. That I think are the more offensive part of that.
And I think that's a good part. But Ronda Rousey's character.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, this is what I think is great about her taking this role. Because she likes a guy, you know, and you know, her career is not predicated on being with a guy. Mm-hmm. She just happens to find this guy and she likes her, and she says, "Hey, I'm sending an Uber over for you," you know, and she cooked the dinner, and she even says, "What, you think I can't cook?" and whatever. Yeah. And he had completely, with the help of drama, completely misinterpreted the signs. And she got
that was
hurt.
A funny bit.
Yeah. And you know, and I found that to be, hey, here is a woman who's like, she didn't have to cook, but she did something that was nice because she was hoping for this to happen. And when it didn't necessarily happen, she really made him literally fight for her affections back. And
I love that.
And it was a good scene. And I don't think it was demeaning to women. I thought that it was actually for her. I thought it was very good to do.
What I take from what happened with E and that thing for fans, excuse my French, but we are on Entourage or whatever, E is a little shithead. Like, that's what he is.
Right.
He always has been. It's not that I don't love his character, but he's just kind of that guy where it's like, what? Like,
if
what
you
are you
polished that, you would lose the things that we like at times from that.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I got from that scene.
I'm not offended by that. I'm not offended by the portrayal of women in that scene as much as that those two characters weren't developed very much. Like, we're gonna have a huge turn now. It's wait, you've had like 10 lines between you up until right now.
But I didn't.
And now you're gonna have this huge turn to change this character's entire.
It wasn't their scene though. It was his scene. But I get what you're saying.
That's my issue. I think it should have been their scene. And if they're gonna make that big a stand with E, it should be their scene.
And since now we are talking about characters, I want to talk about who I think, at least in this movie, was the emotional heart of this movie was Drama, played by Kevin Dillon. I really think that his story was the emotional heart. He's the one that got bagged on the most.
Yes.
Okay, he's still fighting for some sense of credibility in this crazy business.
Right.
And he's done so many, you know, I'm in everything. You know, what are you in? I'm in everything. And he's been in everything, Google it. Right?
Yeah.
And then he gets the whole internet thing. Because he gets the revenge the revenge video Twitter thing that gets blasted out, and it's very hard for him to become taken seriously as an actor. He's always, you know,
it's cool to learn he's talented. I don't mean the actor, I mean the character. That was really cool. I felt like of all of the characters in the season finale, he didn't end up doing anything that I wanted him to do. I thought that the movie really wrapped his character well, and I was waiting for that. Honestly, it gave me chills when he said victory at the end. I was like, yeah,
Such a
you
good
go. I've been
so
waiting
good.
for this. I've been waiting for you for this for when did Entourage come out? Since the day that it came out.
2004, yeah.
2004. I've been waiting for this for over 10 years. Like, you go, boy.
I had a funny thought at that ending that it was a funny thought and then it became a scary thought, that the second he held his hand up and said victory, I thought for sure he was going to wake up in the limo from the first episode. And this whole thing has been
Newhart.
This whole thing has been a St. Elsewhere from Johnny Drama. So I'm happy that didn't happen.
Yeah,
it would have been very disappointing.
I think this movie, and another thing too, again, this movie had, for me, at least 2 misdirects. Number one, because they kept on saying, so Vin gives his brother a role in the movie, but he's only in 4 scenes. And they kept on hammering home, yeah, but they're pivotal scenes.
Yeah.
Now, in regular sitcom writing or comedy writing,
that's
when
a
you're
rag.
saying that, yeah, it's just like, it's appeasing that, yeah, but they're pivotal. And that person goes, yeah, I'm only in 4 scenes, but they're pivotal scenes.
And he's been saying that the whole series.
Right.
He said that about Queens Boulevard, and they cut 3 of the scenes.
And then when this kid goes to see it, this Travis McCreedle kid sees it, is like, I hate him. You got to cut those 4 scenes out. It's sort of, for me anyways, it sort of set it up where Vin is like, I don't want to cut them out because he's my brother or because they're really pivotal scenes, or he's my brother and he's really good and he's pivotal in this movie. Like, how am I going to cut my own brother out?
Well, the reason that it was negated, though, is because what was Haley's character name? Haley Dawes? Travis was full of crap.
Yeah,
He was only saying that to Hertman. So if he had actually felt that way, I would agree with you. But he didn't actually feel that way.
Did he know that? No, I don't. At that point, he didn't know.
At that point, like, we didn't know necessarily the motivations for going into why, and he specifically picked on the brother. So as an audience member, I'm like, because there are a couple of things going on. Number one is the moment that Vin said, I'm having this screening and it's going to be a beach party screening and I'm going to show it to all my friends, I'm like going, this is a recipe for disaster. Because if this movie stinks to this drunken crowd, and the whole thing with them like signing NDAs and people are like, what's this? What do I have to sign? Drunken louts at a bad movie, I don't care what you sign, like, word is going to get out that this movie stinks. So I was like, ooh, that's a bad thing. But then we find out, then we found out that the movie is great. And from Ari and then other people who see this movie, and you're going, okay, that was nice, because they had me leaning that this movie was going to be some garbage. And how many times does an actor turn director and he's given a big budget can make a stinker of a movie, right?
Also, I was kind of
like that.
I was kind of thinking it would be like Medellin, because I actually in the whole series arc, I liked that he made a bad movie. And Medellin was a bad movie.
I guess, but I wanted and expected it to be really good.
The Entourage movie, the movie within that movie should be amazing.
And I got to be honest, the 3 minutes that we showed, come on, let's have a consensus here. Did you think that this movie, you think it looked...
It looked like a good action movie. It didn't look like this awesome Oscar contender they were claiming it was.
Visually, like, it had good shots, but like, I thought it could have been a little bit better, actually, of the way they were all treating it in the show, as if this is like mind-blowing stuff.
I thought it was awesome.
You did?
I thought it was awesome.
You thought whatever minutes we saw. What about you, Phil? Whatever 2 minutes that you saw of
it was always going to be a difficult thing. I mean, what do you show? As an opening to I thought that was I thought it worked. Is it the most like breathtaking movie I've ever seen? No. I mean, I don't know what you would have to put in there to get everyone to agree that this is wow.
That's really true.
Now, regardless,
it was tough. It was like, I don't don't know, but I guess
really liked
I want to turn it back.
I thought it was. Here's the thing. Filmically, it was it was done really, really well.
Is it a term?
It is now.
It is now.
It makes sense to me.
Movie.
Yeah, I got it.
But I just want to go back to drama. Is that I really do find that he was in a sense, he was the emotional beat, because so much was going wrong that in the end, the victory stands for something. Now, again, I just got to go back. If you weren't invested in drama throughout the series,
then what does it mean?
Do you care?
No,
That's
that
what I
ending
was saying.
scene is like. Cool, but you're not.
I'm happy to hear that people who didn't watch the TV show, some of them are still enjoying the movie. I'm not questioning them. They're not lying to me, but I'm wondering why. Because I don't think I would have enjoyed this movie that much if I wasn't a huge fan of the show. I love these relationships. I love these characters. Was the story of the movie good? Yeah. And we did go full circle and whatnot, but I don't think I would have cared about half the stuff in there. I'd been like, why are they including that?
Right. Yeah.
If you weren't invested with these characters over years and years, I couldn't see that. I mean, yes, the beginning, like the 60s or whatever, the Pierce Morgan. Yeah, you get a background of them, but you're not, like you said, the character development in the beginning of the film is comparable to others when you really get that.
I'm actually very, very curious what people think about this movie who haven't seen the series.
Phil, has there been anybody live? What are they saying? Any comments? And have there been a good handful of people that may not have seen Entourage?
Yeah, I mean,
why did they end up liking it?
They haven't given reasons, but they do say that they like it. I mean, it's fairly easy to follow along. I think part of the problem is that Entourage fans, and this could extend beyond just Entourage fans, but we are snooty in the sense like we make a feeling like if you don't know the series, what's wrong with you? You know, or that if you were laughing constantly at something and you don't quite get it because it's an inside joke, it's like, what am I missing? So I think, there's a bit of that isolation to it, perhaps. I don't know 100%, but that would be my gut instinct. And so as it develops, keep commenting.
I'm going to bring this up because two things. Roxy just showed something to me that is I think interesting, and this is audience poll, like legitimate audience poll. So. We've got Rotten Tomatoes, which at a 28%, that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, really
if I'm
crappy.
looking forward to a movie, and then I see that it gets 28%, I'm not so much looking forward to going to that movie.
Especially if it's opening up against Spy, which has a 95% on Rotten
Which I think
Tomatoes.
that's a different story.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
So now... But the audience now on the tomato meter for the audience reaction, they get a 79%, which is about a C+. When you break that down. Now on CinemaScore. Now, CinemaScore is a polling thing. I always mention them because they actually go to movie theaters and they actually, poll people as they come out. Now, in CinemaScore, it got an A-. But I wonder, when were they going out? Did they go out on Wednesday night? Did they go out Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah.
One of those fans came out here. It's interesting to me. I find it very interesting, and I'm glad that our fans are responding live, saying that those who never watched the series enjoyed it.
It's really good. It's interesting that you just said, when are they polling? Because I don't know a single person who's going to go see Entourage. Anybody I know who was going to see it saw it.
I actually knew a bunch of writer friends who were hate watching it. And I was like, guys, some people on your feed are actually genuinely going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, so
I
like
agree
you
with
said,
that point, though. If you wanted to see it, you probably have already
so
seen it.
if you're going Wednesday and that's when you're getting the polls, like I said, I'm like, A+, I love it.
Yeah.
Before I even walked foot into the movie theater.
That's why, I wonder.
The boys
if
are back.
polling,
Yeah.
Let's do this. Well, I wonder if polling, again, I don't know exactly what day. My guess is with an A-, they may have gone on a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what would that polling have been like had they gone on either Friday and or Saturday. I don't know. The theater that I saw it in, it was semi-crowded, and it was during the week. It was a late afternoon, early evening show. The audience seemed to enjoy it. How about the audience that you saw it with? You went opening night, right?
I went on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and it was sold out. And everybody in there was most people were by themselves, I think, and everybody in there was hysterically laughing and kind of talking to each other. You ever go to those movies where people are kind of
feel like you're together? Well, I think that represents the audience, and exactly that's the type of people that you're getting.
Starting in the opening credits, as we're going through, they're like, "Oh yeah," and there's Jeremy and that whatever they're saying. So it was a nice experience. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much at home by myself because it really was like a community feel.
Right.
Yeah, as any good movie going experience is. And especially, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're good, they're with a good audience.
Right.
That's the whole thing. That's why we love movies. It's not the singular experience; it's the communal experience.
What was your guys' audience like?
We had I went Friday or Saturday, I don't know which day, it was full. I was at the Grove, which is a really popular place in
I was
LA.
there
It was
too.
absolutely full, and like people were laughing, people were loose in it. It wasn't it was all good. Like if I walked out and if I didn't know the numbers or 28%, I would have never guessed that because I didn't look at it, and I would have never guessed that walking out.
Steve, how about you?
I actually had a very contrasting. I saw it at a Lemley in North Hollywood. It was probably a Thursday at 7. Maybe half the theater was filled. Everyone was laughing and enjoying themselves, but it wasn't. I feel like I watched it wrong.
Yeah, Phil, how about you? When, where, and how crowded? What was your audience like?
I saw it Saturday, and at that point, I felt like the guiltiest Entourage fan because everyone had seen it.
I can relate to that.
It's really true, and it's like everyone, even Roxy, she texts me, "Can we go to the premiere?" And I said, "I can't go to the premiere, but let's go see it." She goes and sees it Wednesday without me, so I'm like, "Wow."
Yes, I did. I am not ashamed.
I know,
Yes,
but
did.
here's the thing. What I'm saying is, so I felt I'm like, wow, the fact that I have to wait till Saturday to see this, I really feel far behind. Now, the good news is I think this is a type of movie, like, I would go again to see it, very much so, because it is...
Definitely.
Thinking about it.
As much as, we had the debate about HBO versus the big screen, again, from a me perspective, not a numbers perspective, I really enjoyed it on the big screen. It was a lot of fun, and as a community, I did enjoy it. Now, if I went to a less crowded theater, could I enjoy it as much? Yeah, 100%. I really do believe that. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I think, one thing I definitely want to talk about some of the funny scenes and whatever else, because I think there's so many, and I'm curious to know from you guys.
One thing before we get there, this is coming from the chat from Goldman Vision, says Entourage is for entourages. It'll be a sleeper hit on Blu-ray where people can hang out, be loud, and be intoxicated. Watch it, make it all its money back on DVD. What do you guys think about that?
Funny, Goldman, I was going to bring that up, that I think that once this goes into like VOD and Blu-ray and such, that yes, it's going to find even more of that audience. And again, I just wonder, of the fans, like, the diehard fans, I was wondering, like, how much did that 28% affect some of those people?
Yeah.
Like, because if you're a fan of something and you see 28%, like, I know.
No, I
that
don't think
would
they
be-
cared.
Yeah, I don't think
they
You
cared.
think?
anyone who's a fan of Entourage would probably take that number with a grain of salt.
It could have gotten a 1%, and I still would have
gone.
Yeah.
I didn't
Just
care.
like you said, it says Entourage, you're going. I wonder how many people, new fans, went and saw it, and then maybe are now introduced to these guys and are going back
will-
and
and will
watching
go
the
stream it.
show.
A couple
That's what
people in the
H-
chat said
That's what
that.
HBO.
Yeah.
That's what HBO wants.
Yes.
Of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely.
Then you buy
Absolutely.
HBO
And
now.
And then action figures.
So Phil, I'm going to ask you,
there action
because
figures?
you have a gift that few people have, and I wish no. And this gift is, he has a memory like a steel trap when it comes to movie quotes and certain movie scenes. And you had brought up funny
Hopefully
scenes.
I have one.
With that intro, I'm expecting a lot.
But there, like, what was your funny moment in the movie?
For me, Johnny Drama's always been very funny. I mean, this movie, I go beyond just. It's very personal to me. I mean, I grew up watching it like you guys, and when I first came out to LA, there's a picture. I wanted to meet Jeremy Piven, and so the first time I ever got actually out, because I always used to just be in an edit bay with Kevin Undergaro. Literally, that's all I did. That, and then I would sleep. I would walk to the room and sleep. And so, the first time after 2 months I got to go anywhere, it was a charity football match, and I got to meet Jeremy Piven thanks to Maria. Now, how this ties in together, Maria's obviously a huge fan of Entourage, and she
was on the show too.
She was on the show multiple times. Her and Doug Ellin are close. Obviously, her and Mark Wahlberg, and so on, and obviously the guys. And then I think what Demetri's eventually going to pry me to get into is the Golden Globe scene. All of these scenes kind of came together, but there was a point in time when the movie was almost done, and Doug calls Mark Wahlberg and says, what do you think about getting us on the Golden Globes? So Mark makes the call. They make it happen, and that's how the last scene comes to being. And that's how Maria was never supposed to be in the movie, but it just all came about last minute. And there she is reporting on the red carpet live from the Golden Globes.
That was a great scene.
She had a nice little chunk there, too.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Bigger cameo than most people had.
A lot of them are really quick, like to the point I was like, wait, was that? And I was trying to go back and wonder.
Some
Right.
of them are just background, like Commons.
Yeah.
Commons was the one I was thinking, so there had to be more to that they cut.
I
Did
don't
people
know.
like the cameos, dislike the cameos? Did you find that it took you out of the movie?
Yeah, I think I think they went a little overboard, I would say, because there was times when it was like some scenes felt like I was taken out of the plot. It wasn't moving it forwards. I was distracted by it slightly.
The fact Vince was doing that screening at a big party kind of felt like a device to like, let's get as many people into a room.
Yeah, your question was, did people? I think the majority of people didn't. I really liked it.
I love the cameos.
I love watching it. Like going by Jessica Alba for a second and having her pop in.
that was
Any of
funny.
those, I think that the cameos are great because that's their lives. If we're going to have private jets and we're going to have these cars and we're going to claim we're making as much money as we are and we're going to have the biggest star on television, those are his friends. That's realistic.
True, it builds the world,
When I
yeah.
go to parties at Maria's, it's like every single A-list celebrity. Not
Wait.
because she...
Yu-Gi-Oh? Oh, no.
Because those are her friends. That's who she spends her time with.
Yeah.
Those are her coworkers.
It's-
It makes sense that that's who was at this party.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing it. A lot of people said they were distracted. I really wasn't. I thought that it enhanced the movie. And obviously, being a Patriots fan, I always watch.
Yeah, the
Gronk and Brady.
The pool party, the screening party, I thought was hysterical. It was Andrew Dice Clay and his thing, like that was.
And then Busey, Busey's one of my
Busey was
favorite.
great, too.
Because
Right.
Busey was one of my favorite moments of the whole series, and it was like I think episode 4.
Yeah, and now that we're talking cameos, is there anybody who's on live that had a favorite cameo?
Let us know.
That was,
Let us know. In the
Yeah,
meantime,
let us know.
one cameo we're missing is the Val Kilmer Sherpa.
Yeah.
We didn't
Sure,
get
we
him. I had to really scratch the surface to find a character they missed.
There were some. They did
Yeah.
miss some, but not many.
Not very few. 'Cause
Sofia Vergara, who was on very early.
That would be an interesting pull.
They didn't have Bella Thorne, which if
That's
you're wondering about that story, Roxy and I did I Talk Movies with Jerry Ferrara, so check that out.
Great plug, Phil.
Great plus.
No, it's an interesting story. It really is, and I'll save it for you guys to go there.
Yes.
Oh, what a tease!
I know.
That's not something I can
Gotta
give
run
away.
a network.
That's fun.
Wow. The intro scene with Rhonda when she jumped out of the car and aggressively got to them. I loved that. I was
Takes the bat.
yeah.
She's like,
what, was that
sorry.
a bat that she had? I don't
Yeah.
know what she was. She just
Tire iron.
sorry about your car.
Vince,
So
like,
sorry.
it's okay.
Yeah, whatever.
He's the chillest guy.
So chill.
Like, and that's another thing. People who were like, "Oh, I didn't like his character." A lot of people who weren't fans of the show are like, "I didn't like his character." What?
Yeah.
That's his character.
Here's
now.
what I can say about Vince Chase's character. And some of the times in the series I wasn't as pleased. It was when we followed his story more than the other guys. And this movie did a good job of following the other guys way more. Because you reach a certain point with Vince where everything's just going to work out,
Right.
And you
Right,
just,
he always has that
and you don't
mentality.
like him, and I like that they understand that, like, well, no, he's a movie star, that just happens.
Yeah, I know.
He won the lottery. He's the guy and then he brought his friends along, and we're here for his friends.
Well, I want to. We're gonna wrap up in just a bit, and before we do, I do want to talk about not just the characters. I want to talk about the actors themselves, because my other thought while watching this movie was, how come I'm not seeing any more of these guys in movies?
Really good question, yeah.
I know that some are doing like a lot of TV and such, but I remember Adrian Grenier being on Devil Wears Prada, and in fact, his was the only likable character in
He's
that
been
movie.
making docs.
But I'm sorry, what?
He's been making documentaries and,
Yeah,
and
well-
whatnot. He's following his passions. I don't think it's that he can't get roles. I think that he was kind of suspect about even taking this role on Entourage. He's an interesting dude. If you listen to Bad for Business, which is Jerry Ferrara's podcast, he interviewed him, and when Adrian Grenier booked this, he was out of town, Skyped in, didn't
wow.
care, didn't
Yeah.
know if he wanted to take it, didn't want to be on a TV show, hadn't really heard of HBO, like. So I'm not really that surprised.
Adrian's a really interesting.
Yeah.
He's very health conscious too. Like he makes decisions. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, one of the before we get away cameos, and it kind of ties into other stuff, right? Certainly Jerry Ferrara. I really like 50 Cent in the movie. And I really, really loved Mark Wahlberg. Now, the two of them work very heavily with with Randall Emmett and Emmett Furlap Productions, and that's what brought us, Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg and Jerry Ferrara is also in that movie. And out of that friendship, that's how Jerry got to be in Think Like a Man and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just would number one, together as an ensemble, I think they really work, and it really is a testament to casting to getting these people together.
Absolutely.
Because there isn't one person in that group that you can point to they all get together really well. And like I said,
I think they're very close off screen too.
I was gonna say, are they?
Yeah, they're really, really close. They consider at least the four of the guys consider each other brothers. They're incredibly close. They see each other all the time, even when they weren't filming. Just as a quick shout out, when we talked about the cameos, Stretch Monroe says T.I. was his favorite cameo.
okay.
Which is interesting.
Cool. Thank you for who said that?
Stretch Monroe.
Stretch Monroe. Thank you for writing in and for tuning in. So, well, I think we've covered everything from the making of this movie, the long process, the arduous process of making a movie in Hollywood, and how art imitates life, because in
profound.
cases, there were things like this movie too was going over budget. That's another thing that made this an uphill battle, to get this movie done. So that's a major plot point in this movie.
I didn't even put that. Yeah.
Of going into we got to make this movie. I need more money to make this movie, and I could just see execs going, "You're making a fucking HBO movie. What do you need more money for?"
Well, they also they had problems with the script too.
Yeah.
Doug Ellin originally wrote a script that was NC-17. They were like, "You need to make this R-rated."
And
the original cut too was NC-17,
which is kind of
and there was a
true
whole
about
scene
their
with
lives.
Russell Wilson and Kevin Connolly playing football that they didn't use, and Kevin Connolly broke his leg, and that delayed the whole thing.
Yeah, so
worth it.
Then there were a bunch of stuff that was cut. Like I noticed there was at the party scene there was a chef that had one arm, and we saw him twice. And like he was so prominently featured that it was like he had to have had lines that they just cut.
Yeah, so
and there was a bunch of stuff like that.
And here's the thing too: when you're in HBO, and that's why when you're in HBO, you don't have to worry about an NC-17 rating.
Right.
When you're making a movie, you do have to worry about what the MPAA, can or won't help you in getting your movie done. And so I'm sure that when a Blu-ray comes out, that Blu-ray could potentially have an unrated version that, again, may have better been served on HBO, because you could get away with that stuff. Think about Game of Thrones. There's stuff on Game of Thrones, which is HBO, that if you were going to bring it into a movie, they would have to seriously they would have to cut a few frames here and there just to get an R rating.
Absolutely.
HBO, thankfully for them, they have given us some quality television through the years, and they've been they worked hard to gain seriousness within the business, and they've spawned off some great things where people have gone off and have done features, and they've broke people, and they've done some great things. I wish Entourage for that cast and crew that it may have been done better for them. I'm not sure if this trilogy will happen, and maybe we'll see it on HBO. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens in its afterlife.
The question would be, though,
shelf life.
the question would be, because Doug Ellin already announced that he wants to do a sequel at least. Would you guys, or do you guys want to see a sequel to this movie?
I would love to. I would love for their story to continue. Whether it's, like you said, a movie, an HBO special, however it continues, I would like it. If the movie's the only way they can go, then that's what it is.
I understand the economics of it, that they may not do it on a big screen again. They might just do a sequel straight to HBO, which would be fine. But
because it would cut the budget?
But to cut the budget, you can't have Jeremy Piven. That would be my understanding of the situation. To pay Jeremy Piven what Jeremy Piven's worth, it has to be a movie.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind seeing these characters again, but I want them to raise the stakes.
I would agree with that.
You have to raise they didn't really raise the stakes.
So next time he has to write the movie too?
Well, that's the next step for anybody who's going to direct. Now I'm going to write, direct, produce.
And star.
Okay. And I'm going to be the boom operator. And I'm going to be my own DP.
Makes sense.
But make some conflict, like some heavy, deep conflict within this group. Shake it up a bit.
Or maybe just explore things that we haven't seen or aren't used to seeing in the series. That could be really interesting.
Or just center. I wouldn't be opposed if they center it more around drama and his and his newfound problems from being an actual. Well, how many people have won Best Supporting Actor and then like fallen off? So I would be okay with seeing his struggle.
Well, like I said, I believe that he was the heart of the show. It was good that he got his props because I think everybody roots for drama, in a sense. And I think everybody roots for these characters because they are good characters. So,
sometimes I root against E.
Do you?
Just sometimes, because of like he's just such a little shit. But I do love him. In the end, I want him to win.
Yeah.
Shout out to the chat, Stephen Drilling and Jordan Miller. They also want to see sequels.
Yes.
Everybody in here seems to want to see a sequel. So then the movie did its job, if that's the case.
You never know. You never know in this town what will happen. 4 more years.
I was
4
gonna
more
say,
years would be too long.
Yeah.
4 years would be too long. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to start off ladies first. Roxy, where can people find you?
You guys can find me everywhere at Roxy Striar.
You guys can find me at Nicholas Grava on Twitter and Instagram.
And you guys can find me at Steve Kaufmann, that's Kaufmann. Starting this month, I'll be doing both Mr. Robot and Suits with this gentleman over on AfterBuzz TV.
And the wizard behind the curtain, Phil, where can they find you?
You can follow me here at Movie Anatomy on Twitter.
And you can follow me at DMovies, that's DMOIES, not Z. 1701 at DMovies1701, and you can find me here at Anatomy of a Movie. Thank you guys so much. Go with an Entourage and see Entourage again.
Woo!
Yes. We look forward to reading more of your comments, and then also, don't we have a Roxy? We have a live read, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Well, just for you guys and for us, it would really help us out if you went to podcast1.com. There's a survey that you can take. It takes about 3 minutes. It's really easy. We're just looking for some feedback. That's podcast1.com. If you guys do that, we would really, really appreciate it. We love hearing what you guys have to say everywhere, Podcast One and on YouTube and on iTunes and whatnot. But this would really help us out.
By the way, if you want to get into Hollywood,
yes,
host Maria Menounos' new show, along with producer Julianne Hough. You might have seen her on Dancing with the Stars. Perfect for this type of podcast. You can submit a video of you dancing, so you can be part of Dance Battle America on ABC. It's their new show that they came up with together. They've been doing kind of a social media thing for the past few years.
Phil's been in a couple of the dances, actually.
That's right.
We can shake that groove thing.
Now, you aren't auditioning to be on Dancing with the Stars, so you don't need a level of actual dancing. It's all about just having fun. Go to dancebattleamericacasting.com to submit your videos, and you could be on your way to being Vincent Chase.
Getting flown out to Hollywood. DanceBattleAmericaCasting.com.
All right, folks, and look forward to upcoming Anatomy of Movie breakdowns for Spy, Insidious 3, Jurassic World,
The
Mission
Roxy
Impossible,
Show.
The Roxy Show. So this is going to be fantastic. Thank you all for tuning in. See you later. Bye. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.